Okay, so this week, um, all right. So this week, you read about how the Jewish people were speaking with disdain about Hashem and about Moshe because the difficulty that they were having. They spoke negatively about Hashem and Moshe Rabbeinu, and the Torah says that Moshe Rabbeinu immediately forgave the Jewish people, although they did something wicked. But Moshe Rabbeinu immediately forgave them. And the Talmud comments here. From here, we see that when someone asks you for forgiveness, you shouldn't be cruel and hold yourself back for forgiving. Um, and learn from Moshe, who immediately prayed for the Jewish people when the snakes came to bite them because they spoke negatively about God and about Moshe. Moshe immediately said to Hashem, "Please forgive me." He asked Hashem to take away this attack of these snakes. So Talmud says we learn from this: don't be cruel and not forgive someone when they ask for forgiveness. Immediately forgive. So the commentaries say that the source of Rashi is from the Tanchuma. In Tanchuma it says we see here the humility of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't wait to pray for them, and to teach us also the power of teshuvah. As soon as the people said we made a mistake, we sinned, and immediately Moshe Rabbeinu prayed for them. So the Moshe Rabbeinu responds to their request for forgiveness, and they make this request, and we see how powerful that decision was. What they say, "I'm sorry," and we see how humble Moshe is to accept their apology. And then the Medrash says we find a similar thing by Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu also prayed for Avimelech after Avimelech abducted Sarah, and immediately Avimelech and his household are cured from the disease that they had because of his abduction of Sarah. So the Medrash says that what Avram did, what Moshe did, we find already by Avram. When Avimelech asked Avram to forgive him for taking his wife, Avram Avinu immediately responds, forgives him, and prays for him. We also find in Bava Kama that that's what everyone's supposed to do. Talmud says, learn from Avram who forgave Avimelech. So when asks you for forgiveness, you have to forgive them. So the question, though, is the wording of Rashi. Rashi says, here's where we learn that when someone asks you to forgive them, you have to forgive them. Why does Rashi say this is what we learn from here, from the story of Moshe Rabbeinu? It should have already been something that we know from Avram Avinu, who did this for Avimelech. So how come Rashi is saying that we learn this from Moshe Rabbeinu? So if we were to look at these two scenarios of mistakes and forgiveness, or sins and forgiveness, which one is more of a surprise? Which one's more of a chiddush? Which one's more novel? On the surface, the story of Avram and his forgiveness is more novel because Avram prayed to God for Avimelech, and immediately he secured the recovery of Avimelech and his family. But Moshe Rabbeinu, he did forgive them, and he did pray for the people, but the punishment didn't go away immediately. As the Torah says that Hashem told Moshe, put up a copper snake, and everyone who got bit by a snake will look at the copper snake and they'll be healed. So there's something else had to happen first. It wasn't as immediate. So therefore, the question is even greater. Why Rashi says we learn that we have to forgive someone immediately from this verse, when seemingly there's something more we see in the story of Avram. Avram's forgiveness, it seems, was more complete than Moshe's forgiveness, and that's why immediately it caused Avimelech to be cured. But with Moshe, it seems that his forgiveness wasn't as perfect, and therefore something else had to happen. But if you look at this carefully, you'll discover the Rebbe says that the opposite. That the fact that Moshe was commanded to erect this copper snake, that actually indicates a greater and deeper forgiveness than the forgiveness of Abraham. How so? So there are different ways of forgiving someone. In general, forgiveness can be done in two ways. One way you could forgive someone is you forgive them for what they've done. This guy has done something wrong, and he has done something that deserves a consequence. You forgive him for what he's done wrong, and you cause his sin to be removed and the consequence, the punishment to be removed. But then there is a deeper kind of forgiveness. Deeper kind of forgiveness is that not just you forgive the deed the person did, but you help the person himself who has done this deed. The guy who has been injured here, the injured party, doesn't just forgive him for the action he's done to him, but more, he's interested to help the guy who has done this mistake in a way that all feeling of anger and all feelings of frustration are removed. And because he has helped this person who has done this mistake to reach a higher level and to be in a state where they're not doing the same thing, so the forgiveness is in a way that the guy, not just he wants the guy not to be punished, but they're able to become friends again. They're able to become friends in a way that as if there never was a problem in the first place. And that's a novel thing we find in the story of Moshe that is beyond the story of Avram. The forgiveness of Moshe is greater than the forgiveness of Avram. By Avram, we find forgiveness in a simple sense. Avimelech sinned, he abducted his wife, and he was punished from heaven. And when he asked Avram to forgive him, Avram forgave him for the sin, and the punishment was removed. But by Moshe Rabbeinu, the forgiveness was deeper. The Torah says Moshe prayed for the people. The words for the people seem to be extra. Moshe was praying for the people themselves. It means he wasn't just forgiving them because they spoke negatively about him, because he wanted them to not get hurt. Rather, Moshe wanted the people to be elevated. He wanted them to not do the same mistake they did before. And that's because he forgave them completely. That's why he was interested in their welfare, their well-being, their spiritual well-being, not just that they shouldn't get punished. And that's why Rashi says, here is the source that we learn that when you forgive someone, you shouldn't be cruel. Cruel from holding yourself back to forgive. What's unique over here, that's different to the story of Avram, is not that you actually should just forgive. That we know from Avram. What's we learn over here is that the forgiveness has to be with a full heart, without any cruelty, without any insensitivity. In other words, the one who's forgiving shouldn't just be satisfied with the fact that he is foregoing, or like people say in America, it's okay, it doesn't matter. I don't need him to get punished. I'm okay with him. I'll take the high road. That's not really forgiveness with a full heart. There's still some anger. There's still some frustration. There's still upset. The meaning of forgiving with a full heart means that there's no sense of insensitivity or cruelty in the forgiveness. Saying that I'm going to forego what happened and I don't need to have any retribution, I don't have any vengeance, that's not really full forgiveness. That's just like you still are upset, you're still bothered. When people say it's okay, it means it's not okay. It's okay means you're not okay, but I'm not going to exact vengeance of what you've done. I'm okay with you not having me giving you retribution, but I'm not forgiving you as a person. So it's possible for there to be a situation where someone actually forgives someone. On the other hand, there's still some kind of cruelty, some kind of insensitivity in their heart, and there's no complete, wholesome forgiveness with a full heart. Like, for example, we find some similar thing in regards to tzedakah, you give someone the money, you can give them the money with a sad face. And it says if you give someone money with a sad face or angry face, even if you give the guy 1,000 gold coins, you lost the merit. So similarly over here, forgiveness is not just supposed to be an action of like it's okay. It's supposed to be with a full heart. That's what we learn from here. This is the source in the Torah how forgiveness is meant to work. And since Moshe Rabbeinu prayed for the people themselves, he wanted to bring them to be perfected, them to be elevated. Therefore, God told him the way to do this. God said to him, erect the copper snake. If the intent over here was merely to remove the sin and to remove the punishment for this specific action, then they could have been healed immediately. But since the intent was that they should become better people, they should become on a higher level. Moshe wanted their best interest. They should become better. Therefore, God commanded him that the healing will happen by them returning to God. And that's why the Torah says, erect the copper snake and look upwards. That means, as the Talmud says, it wasn't that the snake makes them ill and the snake makes them better. So when they looked upwards to heaven and they dedicated their hearts to their Father in heaven, as Rashi says, that made them have a better situation in general. Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't interested in just them being absolved of punishment. He wanted them to. He cared about them. He didn't like the fact that they were acting that way. And so therefore, what he did was, and what God responded to his wholesome, wholehearted forgiveness and said, "Okay, this is how it's going to work, so that they'll actually become elevated." And that was the idea of the copper snake, that they looked upwards and they dedicated their heart to Hashem. And that's the reason why it appeared in the image of a snake. In other words, they looked upwards to Hashem, but they saw a snake as well. In other words, the point of this was that they should see the thing that has caused the issue, the thing that's caused the pain. They should have full regret of what they've done. And so by them seeing the image of the snake, they made them realize that there's a problem, there's a sin over it. We have to do something about this. And that's why God said to Moshe, make for yourself this copper snake. It should, and Rashi says, it should belong to you. Meaning, you'd think if they have to fix a problem, so then let them use their own money. Why does Moshe have to make the copper snake from his own money? What's going on over here? But the answer is, Moshe Rabbeinu forgave the Jewish people with a very deep and whole forgiveness, in a way that it mattered to him personally. They should be elevated. And therefore, he himself personally was involved with his own finances in making this happen. So this teaches us a lot about forgiveness, about what people mean when they say it's okay, and what's missing there. And it teaches us a lot about who Moshe Rabbeinu is and the role of the leader of the Jewish people, which is very apropos that learning about this today in the third of Tammuz. We threw as the idea of a shepherd of the Jewish people, not just someone who just like prays for us and makes sure that we have externally things that we need, but that we should be actually, we were discussing last week, that a tzaddik is compared to a raindrop. It brings out the best in the seeds. The tzaddik's role is to bring out the best in every Jew. As in the Rebbe's last discourse, he spoke about the faith in Hashem that every Jew has naturally. It is the shepherd, the Jewish people, who reveals that faith. It makes it part of who you are. So just like Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't just make us observe the Torah and teaches us what we're supposed to do, but he makes the Torah part of who we are. He reveals the faith that we have inside our soul. That should become part of our persona. Moshe Rabbeinu reveals the essence of the soul, which is one with the essence of God, and therefore, our faith becomes something which we can internalize, and really it resonates with us. It makes sense to us. Moshe Rabbeinu is interested not just in behavior, but in us, in revealing who we are. Similarly, when we read about forgiveness, Moshe Rabbeinu's, as a leader of the Jewish people, the shepherd of the Jewish people, it's about full forgiveness in a way that the person is not just absolved of punishment, but that there's an interest in this person being elevated to where he's meant to be. So I want to share today. Any questions or comments? Yeah, go ahead.
Quick Good.
All right. Have a great day, Chaim Peretz.
Thank
Great day, Beryl. Great
you
day,
so much. Okay.
Yeshua Shleiman. All too.
Good day. Have a good day, Rabbi. I could see you in Brooklyn. Can't
Yes,
miss Brooklyn. Enjoy the time there, Rabbi.
thank you very much.